Hello and welcome from Padova. I'm Steve Goss and I'm sitting here talking to Francesco Antonioni about his new piece, Dialogue of the Senses, which is being performed for the very first time tonight as part of the Homenaje festival. So first of all, good morning to you, Francesco.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everybody.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you, and I was lucky enough to attend the rehearsal of your piece yesterday. It's a very exciting piece. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you very much, Steve. Yes, the piece is called Dialogues of Absence, in Italian, Dialoghi dell'assenza, and it's a piece that has been commissioned by Giacomo Susani and the Homenaje Festival, and tonight the performers are Giacomo himself and Leonora Armellini, two of the most exciting young musicians available in the world. And it's a pleasure to be performed with such wonderful interpreters, because have this sensitivity to the new music that is always impressive to me. Because Steve, something happens to a composer when he hears his piece for the first time. We as composers, as you know, we deal with computer screens or paper, pencil. We deal with pitches, with notes. We mostly deal with notes, don't we? Then these notes at some point are transformed into music, and that's a kind of a miracle, and I'm always excited when that happens and when I see it happening in front of my eyes, or better, in front of my ears, if I can say so. So that happened today at the happened yesterday at the general rehearsal, and I hope that will happen also tonight with the audience, with the public.
I think what you've done, which was remarkable to hear in the rehearsal yesterday, was your balance between the two instruments was very effectively executed.
Oh, thank you very much.
With piano and guitar, obviously the piano is a huge beast of an instrument, making an enormous sound, and the guitar is intimate, it's small. But you've written a piece in such a way that both instruments get a chance to be heard all the way through. And in fact, sometimes, as you said yourself, it was difficult to tell which was the guitar and which was the piano.
Yeah. Guitar and piano is one of the most unlikely duo available. So I have been always reluctant to write a piece for these two instruments together, because I didn't know how to handle the difference in sound volume. Then when Giacomo asked me to write that piece, I was in that personal situation when I thought that a very quiet piece with lots of silence between the instruments could allow myself to express what I was feeling at that moment, which is this sense of absence. The absence is, of course, the contrary of presence, and it is not exactly the absence of someone, despite it's connected with the absence of someone and someone in particular. But the absence is mostly a feeling of being absent from yourself, not being fully present with your body, with your here and now. And I thought that this contrast between the two instruments, being like one big brother and little brother, or a more sensitive and a more assertive one, or whatever difference can be made between two siblings, two relatives, could help to express this feeling of just being not exactly at ease with myself, with oneself. And the two instruments, of course, have a dialogue because they tell each other, but it's as if every instrument, the single instrument, have an internal monologue with himself that matches with the monologue of the other one, until eventually they join in an unlikely dance, which concludes the piece.
Right, and there are several sections before the final dance. There are, I think, 7 in total, aren't there?
Yes, very small pieces, 1 minute each, as if they were snapshots of some particular phase, or logs or entries in a private diary. Sometimes you want to pin the moment, or you want to fix that very feeling, and you write a note, personal note on your diary or wherever. And this piece is a little bit like that. Of course, a piece of music is not as immediate as an entry on a log. I had to work a lot on that, especially in terms of balance, of harmony control. And there's also one feature in this piece which is made of many canons. A canon is the idea to fix time, because in a canon, when a melody is repeated, it's as if time is not passing psychologically, just chronologically, but the psychology stays still. And this stillness is an important component of the inspiration before this piece.
One of the things that I was really touched by yesterday in the rehearsal is your use of harmony. You mentioned it a little earlier, where you often have some quite tonal materials, but then some alien notes here and there on top, which creates a sort of beautiful and slightly disturbing texture and atmosphere. And I think for me that was one of those things that sort of highlighted the difference between the two instruments, is that at some points they had completely different sort of harmonic worlds that they were working in. Often the guitar a little more conservative and the piano a little more radical. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair. I have a harmonic system on which I devised this piece and other pieces. I have composed a set of preludes called Preludi diatonici, diatonic preludes, which are, of course, diatonic, but they use all the 12 notes of the scale in diatonic sections. So it's a bit complicated to explain in words, but I work with group of 3 contiguous notes that can be shifted around and rotating one around the other. And that gives the impression of conservativeness on one point, because C, D, E is a kind of major ninth, something like that. But then their origin is not tonal, but it's alien, comes from a kind of serial thinking, because it involves all the 12 tones of the piano. So yes, you can feel some weird, some blue notes, some out of place notes, which again match with the idea of not being fully present.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something going scattering around.
I mean, the other thing that I think impressed me is the fact you're not a guitarist, but you wrote very idiomatically for the instrument. You've written for guitar before, electric guitar mostly, actually. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your previous guitar works?
Yeah. Actually, my first published piece, when I was little more than a kid, I was like 16 at that time. I was lucky to write a piece for guitar that pleased one of our major guitar players and scholars and publishers, who was Angelo Gilardino, and he published it in his series of new music for guitar. That happened many years ago. That happened in the last century. In the new century, I embraced with melting and blinking at rock and dance music and electronic music. So I matched 3 electric guitars with a mixed choir and a lot of electronics in my most recent ballet, a full-scale ballet I composed for an opera theater in Germany, in Bielefeld. And it was staged there for 10 performances, and to my surprise, it went 9 out of 10 were sold out.
Wow.
And 8 out of 10 received standing ovations.
Amazing.
Yes, because it was after the pandemics also,
Right,
because it was such an energy in this ballet. Envision that, 13-piece choir, 3 electric guitars playing very hard and with effects, rock and jazz infused music, a lot of bam 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 with electronics. Was very exhilarating for the public.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. The classical guitar is a different beast altogether, of course.
Yes.
We don't have the volume, we don't have the range of sounds and techniques and effects and so on. So were there any special difficulties in writing for the classical instrument?
Yes. How can I say that? Someone in 17th century had a weird idea, and he thought that they should unplug the guitar and transform it into another instrument. That was one of the most weird ideas in the history of music, just unplug an electric instrument. Sorry, just a pun. But it's... You see, Steve, we are living in strange and trying times. as I said, also being with my background, I consider the guitar an electric instrument and the acoustic guitar a unplugged electric instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bias coming from the fact that I was born in the 70s, and I assumed, as everyone here assumes, that our civilization, our world, is an electrified world. We are now facing a challenge, one of the most tremendous challenges of humanity, because of our use of electricity, of fuel, of gas, whatever. Acoustic instruments are not instruments of the past. I think they are the instruments of the future because they are completely natural. They do not need anything electric, anything polluted in order to function. They need an attentive audience. They need to be listened to carefully and closely. So it's the complete opposite of what we thought was granted by our society. And I like to come to terms with that.
That's a really, really interesting way of looking at a very perceptive perspective, actually. That's great. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to tonight. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Really, the performance, even the rehearsal yesterday was so full of energy and the kind of chemistry between the two players. It was really, really special. So, it's being filmed tonight, so more people will get a chance to see it, but really looking forward to it, and thank you for talking to me.
My pleasure, and goodbye.